Hi, my name is Ada Wells. I'm a physical therapist, certified Pilates instructor, and I also own ProBalance Physical Therapy in Alameda, California. So what I'd like to do is show you a quick little set of exercises you can do at the golf course, and sometimes it's a nice just routine to work on warming yourselves up. First of all, just to work on the feet, kind of starting from the ground up, it's nice sometimes just to articulate in through the feet. So basically just doing a little heel raise. Now as you do this, what we want to watch is that we don't just sickle over to one side, but we keep the feet in alignment. So we're just doing a marching motion. Okay? And then you might do those, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 on each side. Then coming up, maybe stretching the back of your foot and back down. Now obviously if you're wearing shoes, this might not be as easy to do this particular version, but if you are at home, this sometimes feels nice. We're just rolling up under the ball, getting a little stretch onto the back of the foot. Okay. From here, as though you have a wall behind you, we're just going to do a little squat and back up. Now what we're doing when we're doing this is notice that my knees are not buckling inwards or buckling out. I'm trying to keep them tracking over my toes. So what I'm essentially doing is sliding down this imaginary wall behind me and just getting a little bit of flexibility in through the ankles and through the heel cords. Okay? So we might do that maybe 8 times, up and down. Okay? Now then the next part is to feel the mobility and the movement in the pelvis. So from here, what you might do is you can do this from a standing position upright, or you can do this down from that little squat that you did. I'll do it from upright. Is if you imagine you had kind of a bolt screwed in from the front of your pelvis all the way up through your sacrum, through your tailbone. If we were to tighten the front bolt, notice how I curve my pelvis forward. If I tighten up that rear bolt, it would tuck the other direction. I don't want to be over tucked, or I don't want to be over arched. We want to be right in between. So we want to basically adjust those bolts accordingly. So sometimes it's nice just to feel where you go, where you can go, and then tune it in a little bit so that now you're in that neutral position. So by the same token, you can do that if you are in that little small squat position. You can tighten your front bolt, tighten your rear bolt, front and back. And just being able to do this works on having that control and getting a little bit of mobility in through the hips and that pelvic control. Good? Want to come on back up. All right? From here, you can actually also allow, sometimes this is a little easier to do when you're turned out, but if you have bolts on the side, we can reach our bolts out to one side, coming back, and reach the bolts out to the other direction. So basically, we're just allowing the hips to rotate, or sorry, to slide side to side, keeping our body upright. Okay, and that just gives you a little bit of stretch in through the outer hip, which is going to be important when you're going through your swing. Okay? Then from here, it's nice to be able to figure out where your rib cage is in space. So a lot of times people will live out here where the ribs will tend to jut forward. I oftentimes see that when people start raising their arms up, you start seeing the whole rib cage jut forward. So we've got our bolts in place here, so the pelvis is stable. What I want you to do with your rib cage is come forward and come back. Forward and back. And just feeling that translation back and forth. So you can feel that mobility. You can then go side, side. And once again, we're trying to stay stable on the bottom half and just allow that movement to occur up above. So doing that translational movement is nice, A, to be able to feel what can happen to the spine, but B, when we want to stabilize things or when we want to stand in a neutral pelvis, we know how to get there, okay? Bring some awareness to the shoulder girdle here and to the collarbones. We want to think about openness and width across here as though you're trying to take your collarbones and pull them to the opposite sides of the room. And then your head should be sitting on top of your spine, not in forward of it. And if I say lift the neck, it's not lifting the neck here, it's lifting out to the back of your head so that basically you stack your head on top of your pelvis and on top of your spine. So that allows us to get aligned. So once you find that alignment, you've been able to feel everything from the bottom up, it makes it much easier for you to get yourself in the right alignment for doing your stretches and doing your warm-up routine and eventually your swing. So what works great is taking your club, and I like to take the club, and if you were to hold it at the top of your head, you have this goalpost position. That's going to be approximately the right position that I want you to hold the club. So making sure that we're standing so that our feet are stacked in the right spot, our pelvis is neutral, we don't have our bolts forward or back, the ribs are over the pelvis, open collarbones, and the head is stacked on top of the spine. We're just going to kind of pull apart your golf club as though you're trying to pull it like taffy, and just bring it up overhead and bring it back down. And while we're doing this, what we're watching for is that we're not shrugging those shoulders up into the ears like this, okay? We're trying to keep space between the ears and the shoulders, going up and down, and once again, watching that those ribs stay in place so that we don't see that translation of the ribs going forward, but we're keeping it right in the right spot. And you might go up and down for about 10 times, okay? And just relax to a few little shoulder shrugs, okay? From here, go ahead and just take your club, and I like to now grip it so that your palms are forward, and we're still in our same position here, so our feet are underneath our hips. And we're going to now, shoulders are down, the ribs are in place. What you're going to do is you're going to reach the club out behind you, watching that we're not going out here, we're not translating everything forward, I'm not trying to lift up, but I'm merely trying to lengthen that club out and bring it back in. Out and in. That's the movement. So it's not a super large movement, but it's a nice way to open up the front of the shoulders. And once again, you're still trying to imagine that you're pulling that club apart just to activate the stabilizers. These exercises are inspired from a type of Pilates called Flexion Pilates, where they actually pull a towel. The towel works beautifully, but if you're at the golf course, you probably have your club handy, which is why I'm showing you this version. Okay? From here, go ahead and widen your stance out. And we're going to go ahead and turn your feet out. We're going to pull our club, bring it up overhead, and we're just going to side bend to one side carefully, like you're in a toaster slide, and bring it back up, and slide over the other direction. Now what you want to think about as you're doing this is you want to think about length, lifting up to the top of your head, and just side bending over to one side without collapsing, without crunching. Okay, this shouldn't hurt. It should feel like you get a nice stretch to the side. And once again, what I'm watching for from our side view is when we're up overhead, we don't start doing any sort of weird rotating. We're really trying to stay right in our toaster slots, side to side, so there's not a weird rotational motion with that. Okay? You can do a couple shoulder rolls, and from here I'm going to still keep my feet out wide, bringing the club in front, shoulders are down, and then keeping the center of your club with the center of your chest. See if you can maintain the stability of your pelvis facing forward, but just allow your upper body to rotate. Okay, so this is just an upper body rotation. And all we're doing here is just trying to see if we can keep the two sides, or to be able to separate the movement from the two parts. Okay? You can bring that up and bring it down. You might only go 3 to 5 times each direction on that, just to feel that separation. Okay? Do a few little shoulder rolls. We can then come out to the side here, bending the knees, and just allowing the arms to come forward. Now, my spine is not hunched over. My spine is in a neutral position. So if I were to take this golf club, place it behind my head, and just hinge forward, maintaining my spine in that position, bring my club forward. Now I can now hinge just a little bit deeper into my hips if I have that mobility. So from here I'm now getting a nice stretch into my lats. And I can now straighten the knees and bend the knees. So I'm just getting a little dynamic stretching through the hamstrings. And notice as I'm doing this, we're not seeing a change in the low back. Right? We're not seeing this happen. If you're seeing that happen, you don't want to straighten out as much. Okay, try to keep it. Only go the range that you're able to maintain that neutral spine position. Good? And then you can go ahead and come on back up to standing again. And then from there, I know I have another one here in mind. Oh, from there actually, if you take your feet and just bring them a little wider than your hips, and you're gonna hold on to the club in front of you, and just kind of come up onto your toes and rotate your body and just set your heels down. And I want you to think about trying to allow the upper body to rotate, to stay facing forward while the lower body has rotated in the opposite direction. Come back up, we'll go up on our toes, rotate and come down, up and back. Rotating over, once again trying to stay forward on that upper body, allowing the pelvis to stay over to the side, coming back up. So now we're rotating the bottom half in relation to the top half, where before we were keeping the bottom half steady, up and down. That one's a little more difficult to do with the golf club because things obviously, sometimes people will go here and they don't feel anything. You may need to hold on to the side of a golf cart, get in a doorway, and that's just really a nice exercise, once again, for getting you to move the bottom half, we move the top half, and just being able to figure out where your center is. So that just gives you a quick little routine that you can do, whether you do that at the course, kind of as a pre-round, or you can do that at home. It just gives you some really good fundamentals of being able to get the body moving and some of the planes that you're going to need to move it with the golf swing. Okay? Thanks for joining me.